Some of the world's most destructive and heartbreaking conflicts are fought over something as simple as a line on a map. But what if they didn't have to be? What if we actually had a blueprint to end these disputes, not just for now, but forever? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into.
For centuries, lives have been lost, futures have been shattered, all over shifting borders. It feels like we've almost come to accept it as this tragic, but inevitable part of our world. But does it have to be? Why, in this day and age, are we still fighting over lines on a map? That's the big question we're asking here.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to build this solution together, step by step. First, we'll get a handle on why this problem feels so unsolvable. Then, we'll lay down a solid foundation of law. After that, we'll talk about winning public support, bring in the power of modern tech, and finally, see how it all clicks into place in an integrated final map. And stick around, because we'll even look at how you can be part of it. Okay, let's start right at the heart of the matter. Are these conflicts truly unsolvable? It's really easy to see why you might think so. After all, when we talk about territorial disputes, we're talking about some of the absolute shakiest ground for global peace. Okay, so here's the real weak spot in our current system. Peace deals and all the lives that hang in the balance are so often built on the shifting sands of political will. An agreement that one leader makes can be totally ripped up by the next, and boom, a whole region is thrown back into conflict. And that right there, that's the vulnerability we absolutely have to fix. So the question is, how do you build something that lasts on such shaky ground? Well, you start by swapping out that sand for solid bedrock. And that bedrock, the first and most critical layer for any kind of lasting peace, is a foundation of law. And what's so cool is that international law already gives us this incredibly powerful tool. It's a principle called pacta sunt servanda, which is just Latin for agreements must be kept. The Vienna Convention gives this principle extra weight, special force when it comes to border treaties. Because let's face it, they need way more stability than, say, your average trade deal. This isn't some new idea. It's a legal principle that's already there for us to build on. What this does is create this amazing legal pincer movement, kind of squeezing the agreement from two sides. On one hand, you have international treaties that bind nations on the world stage. On the other hand, you have national constitutions, which provide the highest level of legal protection inside a country and protect the deal from the day-to-day chaos of domestic politics. It's a really powerful one-two punch. Okay, so what does this look like in the real world? It really comes down to a few concrete actions. Nations sign treaties that have clauses for automatic arbitration if a problem pops up. They define their borders with super precise GPS coordinates, so there's literally no wiggle room. Then, they lock those agreements into their constitutions using what are called eternity clauses, which are, you guessed it, incredibly hard to change, needing huge majorities or even a public vote. All right, so a legal foundation is absolutely critical. But let's be real. Laws on paper mean nothing if the people they affect don't support them. So the next layer is all about building these strong walls of support by, well, winning hearts and minds. So when you're not sure what the people really want, a fair referendum is a powerful way to get some real democratic legitimacy. And the process is pretty straightforward. First, you set the rules together. Then you hold the vote with neutral international observers to make sure it's fair. You protect the voters so they can't be intimidated, and here's the kicker, both sides have to promise upfront to honor the outcome. No takebacks. Look, a vote gives you legitimacy, for sure. But for peace to really, truly stick, it can't feel like a zero-sum game, where one side wins and the other just loses. The final deal has to create real, tangible benefits for both sides. It has to be a win-win. Simple as that. And that's where we get to be a little creative with the economics. Instead of fighting over who gets the oil or the water, you create clear, transparent formulas to share the money. You can set up joint development zones where everybody profits. You can grant access rights or even put together compensation or land swap deals. See? These tools completely change the game. They turn a fight over a piece of land into a partnership for making everyone better off. Okay, so we've got our legal bedrock. We've built our walls of public support. Now it's time to add the high-tech watchtowers, technology to make sure everyone's playing by the rules, and a strong deterrent to stop anyone from even thinking about cheating. The technology we have today gives us this amazing toolkit for keeping the peace. We can use blockchain to create a digital record of the agreement that's basically impossible to mess with. We have satellites that can watch the border 24/7 and spot any violations in an instant. And we can use international databases, so there's one single, undisputed source of truth for all the maps and documents. It's all about creating total, radical transparency. But, okay, what if someone just decides to break the rules anyway? That's where collective security comes in. This is the muscle behind the whole agreement. It's a really simple idea. An attack on one is an attack on all. When a whole group of nations makes that promise, it makes any kind of aggression incredibly costly, which is a huge deterrent. It makes everyone think twice and encourages them to stick to the plan.
All right, it's time to put all the pieces together. We've looked at the different layers: the law, the public support, the tech, the deterrence. Now let's see how all these layers lock together to create what we're calling a complete fortress of peace.
So this is the final blueprint. And notice it's not just one thing, it's a whole system with multiple layers where every single part makes all the other parts stronger. You've got the international treaty, which is then locked down by national constitutions. It's all verified by tech like blockchain and satellites, and incentivized by everyone getting a piece of the economic pie. It's all backed up by the international community. It just all works together. And that, right there, is the fundamental shift. We're moving away from a fragile piece that just depends on who's in charge at the moment, and we're moving towards a really robust, interlocking system that's designed to last. Every single layer we've talked about makes the whole thing that much harder to break. Now, this blueprint is great, but it's not just some academic idea. It actually needs people to make it happen. So let's get practical and talk about how you can actually help build this more peaceful future. First up, your expertise. If you've got professional skills, maybe you're a lawyer or a tech expert, a mediator, a map maker, you can offer those skills. You'd be surprised how many organizations are out there that depend on pro bono help to get this stuff done. Next, you can get involved as a citizen. This means pushing your own government to properly fund the international institutions that are the backbone of this whole system. We're talking about the international courts and the peacekeeping forces that uphold the rule of law. And finally, number 3, direct support. I mean, you've got incredible groups like the Carter Center or the International Crisis Group. They are literally on the front lines every single day, and they rely on donations to do that life-saving work. Your support can make a huge difference. So here's the thing. The tools, the strategies, the legal frameworks, all of it, it all exists right now. The problem has never been a lack of solutions. It's about finding the collective will to actually use them. So the blueprint is right here, in our hands. The only real question left to ask is, are we ready to start building?